Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs and today we are looking at my custom, the White Knight Bruce Wayne Mcfarlane figure. This guy was super cool because of the fact that this is the second Mcfarlane custom or second Mcfarlane commission that I've ever had. And because of that, I'm not as familiar with the format. I'm still not as familiar with the build and construction of Mcfarlane figures. And so it was a really good learning process, especially in terms of how to prep a figure properly, and even finding the correct base of a figure so that the work you have to do is not nearly as hard. And so taking a look at this guy, you can see that there aren't very many accessories on the board. We have an alternative head and we have a grappling hook, and that's really about it. Mcfarlane doesn't really include alt hands with their figures, and a lot of their sculpts are singularly tailored to that one figure. So it's not like this Batman body is really used for anything besides Batman the White Knight. So it's not like Marvel Legends where you can just repaint and swap in and out parts. And so the wrist pegs are very specific and specifically sized for this mold. So there's really not too much you can do there. The only thing you can really do is 3D print and model interchangeable pieces onto most of your McFarlanes. And I'm not quite there yet. I'm not good enough to do that just yet. Hopefully in the future, I am trying to workshop some ideas in that department, but I have some learning and a little bit to go before I'm making custom interchangeable pieces for figures. Not nearly skilled enough to do that yet. But since we're here, let's talk about the accessories we do have. We have the head on the figure, this masked head, which is an original Tosh Customs design, and obviously the grappling hook. So let's pop off this head and dive in. So this is expressly based off the comics. What's really interesting is having to take a very comic book design in terms of proportion and making it making it 3D printable, making it a very physical piece, because there aren't really proportions aren't really taken into factor when you're making a comic book character. For instance, look at this body. He's got these really wide shoulders. He's got this really big chest, and then it narrows down to a very thin waist. And he's got these very lanky legs with these pointed boots. I mean, he's got tiny feet for his body. And so everything is very ultra stylized. And same thing with the head here. He's got a very, let me focus the camera here. He's got this very long rectangular face with these small, beady, angry sort of squinty eyes. He's got this pointy beard. And so he has a lot of hard angles in the face. If you look at the original art, he's got these very high cheekbones and this long, cheek or jaw coming all the way down. And so I worked on replicating that really well, and you can actually see the line of the cheek running right across there. And so it is actually physically sculpted in to the head. But along with that, it's just figuring out how everything else sort of fits together around that. And so also sculpted in this sort of partial over the head Batman cowl. I really think this is a cool idea that comes from the comics, and I really dug it. But then I was asking myself, this is Bruce Wayne back in the Batman cowl, but he shows his face now. It's kind of odd. And honestly, I haven't read the White Knight story, so I don't know if it's explained or there's a reason for it. But in talking with the customer, I said, hey, what if this is a retracted version of the actual Batman cowl? And so in talking about that, we came up with this, a full face mask that covers everything. And so as you can see, the original sculpt is retained, including the hair, but now you have this full plate that comes up and covers the front. And so I wanted something that kept with that very sleek, streamlined look. As you can see, I added a couple little futuristic panel lines and stuff throughout. And so then those are all continued over. And so when making the actual face sculpt, I had little points up here off the side of the mask that come up around, you can see them right there. And then I wanted to continue that orange, sort of keeping in line with the very high cheekbones. And so you have these orange lines that run down as you have this full faceplate that covers. So obviously this does not show up in the comics, but I thought it was pretty sick. And we have to, you have to be a little artistic when you're making these customs. You got to make it interesting, make it unique. And so you do get a sort of Batman Beyond, futuristic design for this full faceplate. And then last but not least, I am including this grappling hook. I bought this Mcfarlane figure off eBay because I just couldn't find a good one on Amazon and on Big Red Toy Store. And maybe the listings have changed since then, but when we first started this project a little while ago, I couldn't find one new at a reasonable price. That was in the gray suit color scheme. There's a lot of people selling White Knights in like the special edition brown red, but I really did not want to have to deal with repainting the entire figure and getting it out of that brown and red color scheme. So I bought one used, and unfortunately that means it didn't come with its grapple hook. So instead I have brought this one over from the BVS, I think it was an SH Figure Arts figure. And this grip fits perfectly in his hand, so thank goodness. And I think it fits the aesthetic pretty well. It's semi-futuristic, but Bruce is a little bit older, so maybe he does like to retain that wood grain handle. So just brought it over directly. I really have not made any modifications to this whatsoever. So putting those out of the way, I will take the full face plate now, and let's plug that on, and let's talk about the Batman figure itself. One thing that is on this figure that you have not seen on any Mcfarlane figures, unless we talk about the up-and-coming Flash movie ones, is soft goods. And in general, I don't see a lot of people putting soft goods on their Mcfarlane figures except for capes. And the reason being, once again, every Mcfarlane figure is a custom sculpt. They rarely actually reuse their body sculpts unless it's a repaint of the same figure. And so because of that, it's not like Marvel Legends or like Mezco where it's very easy to make soft goods. Everything is going to have to be essentially custom per sculpt, per proportion. So what I ended up doing is I realized this guy in his, as a Mcfarlane figure, the White Knight figure has very broad shoulders. And so I said, I'm going to buy some soft goods for the largest shoulder possible, which is V-Toys. So this is actually a V-Toys leather jacket, and crazy enough, the V-Toys body frame is still too small for this figure. So what I ended up doing is under all of this, it is all shaved down. And you're not going to be able to see it. Even if I pull this away, you're only going to see the connector joint. Like, I can't really expose the shoulder that much, fortunately or unfortunately. So you won't be able to get a really good view of what I did. But I shaved down, I removed the cape off the White Knight figure. I shaved the block in the back down, and then the shoulders as well as the biceps are shaved down to probably maybe like 50% of what they were at the beginning. I took a ton off, and all that so that I could slide the arms through the jacket. And you might be asking, why are you doing all this? There's other trench coats by Mcfarlane. The customer wanted to have soft goods integrated. He wanted the posability, he wanted the flexibility of having soft goods, but he wanted it in the Mcfarlane scale. And so we had to jump through some hoops to get there. And so that was one of them, was shaving down the arms. The next thing then is, okay, you have these shaved down arms, but now you have these massive forearms. I can't shave down everything because we have some sculpted detail here. We have the bat fins on the back of the arm. That's not going to fly. So instead, what I said was, look, these arms have been completely shaved down so that we can fit this jacket over it. He still looks good. He doesn't look too small. It's not like this is out of proportion. So how do we make up the difference between how we've scaled down the arms to, still 100% forearms here? And so what I did was I took the jacket, I slid it in between the seam of the bicep and the forearm, as you can see there, And then I plugged the pin joint back through it. It's a single joint. So I plugged the pin back through it and punched it through the fabric. So you have forearm, fabric, elbow, bicep joint, fabric, then forearm on the other side. And the pin goes through all 5 of those layers. And so that way, the jacket is held in place. So now it pulls with the arm, it bends with the arm. As you can see, we have a full range of articulation. You can run it all the way up. You can bend it all the way. It's all good. However, as you can see, you can probably only get the arm to about 90. If you try to push it past 90, you will start to like expose the elbow joint in there. And that's because I just couldn't get the fabric to extend all the way, into that curved mechanism of the elbow. So you get just about 90. That's probably about all you can do for that. But yeah, so that is how I went about solving that problem. So sculpted all this sleeve on there, and I tried to texture it and add in folds as much as possible. And honestly, I think it looks pretty good. I think it turned out quite nicely. So then the next thing was I removed the cape on the figure. And so with that, he had these old plastic like block pegs that were there. So I ended up sculpting a whole new cowl and collar piece all the way around. And then the leather jacket just sits over that. And that looks really nice because you have this collar that lines up with the head here. And so I think that's pretty cool. You get some black down here, you get some black up here. So I think it's pretty nice. And it's really cool that the collar's all wired. So you can fold the lapels, you can get him to get that nice, really straight collar look up around the neck. Now for the bat symbol, the original one from the White Knight is just this long bat symbol that runs across the whole chest. But the Bruce version has a smaller Batman symbol at the center of the chest in yellow. And so I sculpted a new Batman symbol and painted it in yellow. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Something I did do though was, let's see if I can get to focus. I dirtied it up and I used multiple shades of yellow, orange, and mustard. And so you get this very sort of mixed yellow look in it. And then I dry brushed a little bit of silver and a little bit of black and brown over it. So you get some speckling and chipping on it, because with this whole, black piece behind it, my idea is that this is all chest armor. So this is actually more of a hard plate covering, maybe some part of his vital organs. And so with that, added a little bit of weathering over the yellow to help, I guess, I'm trying to think of the right word. Help with that design idea. It helps communicate that this is a hard plate piece versus more of like a synthetic fiber protective suit layer. The comic books does have these little orange lights on the side of the ribs or on the side of the torso. And so I sculpted in these little orange ovals and painted those orange. And I think those turned out really, really nice. And then coming down to the belt, this is the same belt from the White Knight figure, but the Bruce version has these little tiny skirt things that come off. Why he does, I don't know. I don't know what it contributes to the suit, but he does have it. And in the comics, it actually is two-tone between more of a mustard orange to that yellow. And so I did paint those two-tone. I also added more of that mustard orange in between the front side of the belt, just so that it accentuates the color difference. I did run out of the mustard that I mixed, and so the back side of the belt I left blank, but it's always going to be covered by the jacket. So not really a big deal. I would have liked to bring it across, but I couldn't color match not very well. I just couldn't figure out what I ended up doing, unfortunately. So that's what we got. But as you can see here, all the pouches have been repainted to match everything else, as well as some gunmetal detailing, some silver chrome detailing around the buckle. You have all your little pins and buttons, and then some brown dirt to go over that. And then last but not least, this version of Bruce does have this yellow leg pouch here. So I took a leg pouch from, I think it was a Evolve figure made by, I think it was, maybe it's not Spin Master, maybe it's Jazzwares. I forget who made the Evolve figures actually. Oh, it's Pop, like Pop Funko. Yeah, they made the Evolve figures. So an Evolve figure from Pop, and then I sculpted in the leg straps that run across. And once again, they're painted in the same way with this nice yellow mustard-esque color, some sculpted in details, and then some nice dirt dry brushing to top it off. The boots are essentially the same. There is no sculpting that has been done to modify it, but I did paint these black panel lines that run through. Before it was all flat gray, and so now you get these black lines to add a little bit more drama to it. On top of that, he does have these little, I guess, little clips on the suit. I can't figure out functionally what they do, but they're really cool looking. So I picked those out in some nice gunmetal. The bat fins here, as well as on the back of the feet, are also picked out in a little bit of gunmetal. And then finally, for the gray part of the suit, it's actually completely repainted. So what I did was I did a black wash in all the cracks, as you can see. You can see some nice black in a lot of these wrinkles. And then I mixed 3 shades of lighter grays, and I dry brushed them over to do dark, medium, and highlight sections for the suit. And so now it's got some real drama to it. It doesn't look like a plain, just cast plastic sculpt, but now you have the shadows and you have the highlights and the lowlights in there, and it picks up really, really nicely when you look at it. And so I think that just helps add to sort of the more gritty style that we have for the figure. And so lastly, what we should talk about is the actual soft good itself. You know, we talked about the body, we talked about everything I did here, but for the jacket, I have also done weathering on it to make it look more realistic. You know, it's always about taking your source material and bringing it to life. And part of bringing something to, you know, physical form, taking it off paper, is asking, what would it actually be like if someone was wearing a coat in, you know, neo future Gotham, who's jumping around buildings still, and there's going to be some weathering there. So as you can see here, I have some brown red weathering across all the seams and stitches. You have them coming across all the arms here, and I know that the light is making it a little bit hard to see, but you can see here we got some nice browns. Let me see if I can focus this camera. There we go. You can see we have brown running across the bottom edge here. It runs up all these seams. It's across the back. You also pick up some nice brown at the bottom of the boots there, as well as some dry brushed brown and some gray in the sculpted wrinkles right here. So not only does he have some weathering on the actual suit itself, has weathering and hopefully some what would be considered realistic weathering on the leather jacket portion as well. So I'm super, super happy with this guy. It was definitely a challenge, and I think the most challenging part was actually planning out the figure. I knew I was going to have to 3D print the heads. That was pretty obvious from the start. But in terms of how everything else was going to come together, a lot of it was decisions made on the fly, if I'm being 100% honest. Because as I was making the figure, I realized, okay, shoot, I need soft goods. I don't know what soft goods scale. I'm going to have to take a good bet and run with V-Toys. And then when the V-Toys didn't fit exactly, I said, well, I'm not good enough to make a pattern or scale a leather jacket all by myself. So I'm going to have to make do. So let's start with attempting to shave down the shoulders. And once the shoulders were shaved down, I was like, oh shoot, how am I supposed to get the sleeves to fold up at the forearms? And, you know, once again, that was its own whole ordeal of figuring out how in the world this is going to fit best. And then once I realized, okay, I'm just going to plug them into the forearms. Okay, great. Now I have to sculpt all around the arms there too. So it just sort of like, it felt like things had to come together organically and almost had to come together through experimentation. It was, okay, one door closes, how do I open up another door? And then as one door closes, how do I open up another door? And I'm sure for many of you who are customizers, that is that is a feeling or experience that you'll resonate with a lot. And that just comes with part of it. And I think that is where your determination as an artist to get something complete, in my case, because someone's commissioned me to do it, I can't fail. Someone is paying me to get this done. But, in the case of any personal project, how much do you want to get it done? And then how do you get from point A to point B to point C to point D? And so in this case, it's try again, and then be creative with your solutions. In my case, I don't think I've ever seen anyone integrate soft goods and hard sculpt together in this way so that the elbows can bend, and you can work on a single joint, and you can work with things that are different proportions. I think this was a very creative solution, and I don't think I've seen many people do it. And so in that way, that's how, I had to approach and had to attempt to solve the problem. And I think it turned out great. But, hopefully for you guys, as you continue on in your sculpting or customizing our artist journeys, just sort of take and adopt that mindset. This is a very comic book character. This is not an original for me, so I'm not going to be able to sit here and offer artistic tips and tricks in the same way, but I can say, this guy presented a very, very unique problem to me, and so this is how I went about solving it. So with that, I realized I didn't talk about too many of the face painting techniques or how I painted the hair and a bunch of other things, but honestly, there's 1,000 videos online. There's so many customizers out now. I'm sure if you're trying to learn, you can hit me up and ask me, Tosh_customs on Instagram. You can ask any of the other artists that you love and respect or that you find along your journey. But I feel like I wanted to highlight the sort of ups and downs of creating this guy because I find him really unique, and I do have a lot of love for the figure, for what I had to go through to get him done. So with all that said, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all your support online. I appreciate all your interest, and especially the love you've been showing the YouTube channel recently. I think, it's a small number. I'm a small channel, but I think I grew by like 30 subscribers in the last 2 weeks, which was really, really crazy. So I appreciate all the love you guys have been showing me there. If you want to see more of what I'm working on and hopefully at a more consistent pace of updates, go check out my Instagram. Once again, Tosh_customs. And I think that's all I have. So, one last thing. I know that people have been asking about when am I going to make some Red Hood customs for purchase. I'm still working on concepting and putting it all together. There's a lot of things I want to do with these 2 Red Hoods, and I want to make them unique for each person who ends up getting them. And so I'm working on putting that all together so that it feels very unique for each person who gets one. So there will be 2 Red Hoods available for sale at some point. These are not commission based. This is, sort of every man for himself. So pay attention to the page because I know that there's a lot of people who love Red Hood, and I will be making 2 in Mezco scale with soft goods and all that other fun stuff. So stay tuned for all of that. Until next time, once again, thank you so much. Take care, and I will catch you later.